Hello, everybody. Today we are gonna do our first weekly NHL Power Ranking. What this isn't is what teams I think are gonna win the Stanley Cup right now, or who I would pick to win the Stanley Cup if the playoffs started today. What this is what teams are playing well, who do I think is playing the best right now over the last little bit. We'll go 1 to 32 in reverse order, and I'll talk a little bit about each team. At number 32, we have the San Jose Sharks. The Sharks are a really fun team, a young team. You have Celebrini, Smith, Eklund, Zetterlund. Guys are playing well. The games aren't boring, but they're just not winning games, unfortunately. One win in their last 10. They have the lowest points percentage in the NHL, so they find themselves at number 32. Number 31, the Chicago Blackhawks. The Blackhawks are another young, rebuilding team. They play close games, but they did get blown out by the Sabres this week, 6-2. They don't score a ton of goals. They find themselves at 31 for now. Number 30 this week, the Detroit Red Wings. Just a team that can't put wins together consistently. Lost 3 or 4 in a row now. They don't put a lot of shots on goal. They're not a fun team to watch generally. If Larkin and Raymond aren't on the ice, there's just nothing going on for this team. Don't know how promising everything looks going forward for the Red Wings. I think they need a lot of help with that roster. Number 29, Buffalo lost 13 straight, but you know, their last 2 games, they beat the Islanders 7-1, and then they beat the Blackhawks 6-2. You know, at this point in the rankings, when you're this low, you win 2 games in a row, and, you know, you're going to push yourself ahead of some teams that might have been ahead of you last week. Number 28 this week, we have the Nashville Predators. The Predators do give up 7 to the Blues, lose that game, but the Predators have a way of, like, beating some of the better teams in the league once in a while. They play close games. I think out of any team so far that we've seen, the Preds have the best chance of maybe turning it around, but I do think the Preds are in too big of a hole at this point. Number 27 this week, the Anaheim Ducks. A team that doesn't score a ton of goals. Lost to the Flyers today, or yesterday, 3-1. You'd want to see more offense from the Ducks going forward. A lot of it is on Gibson and Dostal to get them wins. Number 26, a team that nobody probably expected to be this low at any point during the season. The Rangers are an absolute dumpster fire right now. They beat the Stars a week or so ago, 3-1. Shesterkin stole them a game, and I thought it was possible that was a turning point for the Rangers, and it just wasn't. They've lost 3 straight since then. They're in last in the Metropolitan Division, and I don't know if they're going to be able to turn it around. Seems like they've turned on the GM, and I don't know what needs to change for the Rangers to fix this, to be honest. Number 25, Columbus. Able to put up a lot of goals at home. They put 6 up on the Bruins the other day, but then they go on the road and they get shut out. If they could score goals on the road like they do at home, win games on the road, Columbus could find themselves pushing for that second wild card spot. Marchenko's playing great. The Monahan's playing great. Werenski's having his best season ever. So they have some goal scoring. They need the goaltending, and they need consistency on the road, and they could find themselves moving up a little bit more. Number 24 this week, the Seattle Kraken. Kraken had a nice comeback win yesterday against the Canucks. They were down 4-1 in the last 5 minutes, score 3, and then win it in overtime. But before that, the Kraken had lost 5 straight games, I think, coming into it. They're just not consistent. If they can get a little more consistency, maybe they can push for that second wild card, but I don't know if I'm a big believer in the Kraken. Number 23, a team that's playing really well right now, the Montreal Canadiens. I think they've won 6 out of their last 10, coming up on NHL 500. They shut out the Panthers yesterday for nothing. But yeah, you have guys like Hudson's probably the Calder Trophy winner right now. It's between him, Celebrini, Michkov, and Dustin Wolf. So I would probably pick Hudson right now. They're exciting. They might be a little ahead of schedule, see if they could keep playing well. I like watching the Canadiens right now. Number 22 this week, the New York Islanders get a ton of overtime points, which keeps them close to the playoff line. I think they have 7 overtime losses already. Do get blown out by the Sabres, but then they had a nice win against the Penguins yesterday. We'll see if they can find any consistency or if they just keep, losing in overtime and getting points that way like they did last season and prevent Lou Lamoriello from selling at the deadline like he probably should. Number 21 this week, the Philadelphia Flyers. Flyers looked good yesterday in a win over Anaheim. Mitchkov was cold recently, so they kind of have been on a little bit of a downslide, but they're a team that's, 500 right there that could push for that second wildcard spot. I don't know if the Flyers have the roster to do that. They're still one of those teams that's probably more towards a rebuild than building towards the playoffs, despite where they finished last year. But they can win games, find themselves in the middle of the second row. Number 20 this week, Pittsburgh Penguins. See if the Penguins can push for that second wildcard spot. They might need some help if they want to do that. I don't know if they trade for a little more depth on offense. The defense isn't great either. Carlson had a real tough game yesterday defensively against the Islanders. He was frustrated by the end of the game. We'll see what happens with Pittsburgh if they can go back to a high win percentage, but they're right around the 500 mark and could be looking to push for the second wild card. Number 19, the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis is another inconsistent team. They've been better since the coaching change. They're still not winning at a crazy pace. They're slightly above 500. Beat the Predators 7-4 the other day. Probably a team that needs to make a roster move if they're going to push for the playoffs, but I don't know if they're a team that could make noise in the playoffs if they get there. But the Blues are playing okay. Number 18 this week, Vancouver. So you look at Vancouver in the standings, you say, hey, Vancouver's not doing that poorly. They're in a playoff spot. They're, way over a 500 points percentage. Vancouver has lost more games than they've won this season. They just had that bad loss to the Kraken. They were up 4-1, and they, let up 3 goals in the last 5 minutes and lose in overtime. There's drama around this team with the Pettersson and Miller rumors, and they're really being held by those. I think they have 7 overtime losses, so I don't think things are going great in Vancouver right now. Demko's still trying to come back from his injury and doesn't look like himself yet, but we'll see if Vancouver can straighten it out. Number 17, the Flames. The Flames beat the Sharks yesterday. They should beat the Sharks. They find themselves right by that second wildcard spot. The Flames were a team this year that I didn't really think were going to be crazy good, but they're, making it interesting. They're making, their GM have to make a choice to see if this team pushes for the playoffs or if they go for the full rebuild. They're in a weird spot right now, and, that's because the team's playing well. I don't think they had the pressure of expectations, so maybe that allowed them to, play a little better than people thought they were this year. So Flames at 17, rounding out the second row. Number 16 this week, Boston. I'm probably a little lower on Boston than some people are. Beat the Blue Jackets one day, shut them out 4-0. Game before that, they lose 6-2. I just don't think the Bruins are consistent, and that's their big issue. Some people might have them a little higher on their weekly rankings, but I think 16's right where they belong. Number 15 this week, the Ottawa Senators. We're looking good early against Winnipeg yesterday. We're up 2-0, let up 4 in a row. Winnipeg comes back and wins that game, but Winnipeg's not on the board yet. Winnipeg's a pretty good team, but the Sens are playing well. I think the Sens look like a team that should hold on to a wild card spot. They have a lot of talent. I think they've won 7 out of their last 10, 8 out of their last 10. So I think the Sens should be able to keep it up and be right in that wild card hunt the whole year, and maybe they break the playoff drought. 14 this week, Utah. Utah's a fun team. A lot of good young players. Cooley, Gunther. Obviously, Clayton Keller drives this team. They're missing 2 of their top 4 D-men right now, and they're still playing pretty well. Lost to the Lanch this week, 4-1. but the Lanch are playing really well right now. I'd like to see Utah make the playoffs. I'd feel bad for the Arizona fans, but I think Utah has a good enough team here, especially when they get Dursey and Marino back to make the playoffs. With Vamelka playing really well in net, we'll see if they can keep up the good play and compete for that wild card spot like I think they should. Number 13, Dallas. Dallas is a weird team. I thought Dallas was one of the juggernauts coming into this season. I thought they were probably the second best team in the West behind the Oilers, and they've been really inconsistent. They lost a 2-goal lead in the third to the Wild the other day. That's the Pete DeBoer special. When you watch Dallas play, they kind of do this weird thing if they're in the lead in the third period where they turtle a little bit. And it seems to cost them sometimes. I think this team just needs to have their top guys going a little bit. You want more out of Robertson. I think Dallas figures it out, though. They're still in a playoff spot. They'll be a playoff team. But right now, number 13. Number 12, the Minnesota Wild, the team that had a nice little comeback win against the Stars this week. You know, Stars are a really good home team, and they didn't have Kaprizov. Minnesota plummeted last week for me. They were having a tough time. They were losing to the better teams in the league. So we'll see if this is the start of the Wild climbing back up the rankings. I'd like to see the Wild do well. I've always been a Wild fan. Number 11, the Avalanche. The Blackwood trade's looking real good for them. They lock him up with the contract. I think that's a really good deal for them. I think Blackwood's going to be their goalie of the future. The team plays good defense, and Blackwood's a good goalie. He had good numbers even on a San Jose team that was, you know, porous on defense, and the Lanch are just going to help him improve his numbers, and that stabilizes them, where Georgiev was giving them a lot of issues earlier in the season. I think they're 8-2 in their last 10. They're beating the teams they should beat. I think the Lanch are just going to keep moving up now that they've stabilized their goaltending. I need to shrink my camera slightly. You guys are going to see me get a little small. Whee! Number 10 this week, the Carolina Hurricanes. Hurricanes split a home and home with the Devils. Looked really good yesterday. Outshot the Devils 41-23 after they lost the game the day before. Need some stability on goaltending. Freddie's hurt right now. He'll be back. Kochenkov's been okay. Tokarski comes in today. Yesterday, gets the win. The Hurricanes, with the system they have, are always going to be competitive. They're able to limit teams while putting up a ton of shots themselves. Everybody buys into that system, and the Canes will be a playoff team. Little up and down lately, but I think the Canes will be all right. So I think 10th is the spot for them. I think that's where they belong. Number 9, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Maple Leafs a little up and down lately. Matthews is hurt. Stolarz is hurt. Stolarz has really been carrying the Leafs this year. So see if Murray and Wall can hold it down while he's gone. Wall's been good. Murray's been okay. Maple Leafs, you know, beat the Red Wings this week, but the Red Wings are down at 30, and then they lose to the Capitals yesterday. 9th feels about right for them with the way they've been playing. We'll see what happens when Stolarz and Matthews comes back, if they can move up the board. Number 8, the Jets. Had the monster start to the season, then dipped a little bit, and now the Jets are on their way back up. They get the win against Ottawa yesterday. Hellebuck's probably winning the Vezina again if the season ended today. He's been out of his mind. Kyle Connor and Scheifele are having career years. And if the Jets keep playing well, they're going to keep moving up. They could find themselves in the top 5 next week if they have another good week. Number 7, Panthers. Panthers get shut out twice this week. Get shut out by the Lightning and then lose 4-0 to the Habs yesterday. They got shut out back-to-back a couple weeks ago as well. The Panthers are still fine, though. But, you know, they get a few more shutouts. Maybe they fall down a row next week. They usually right the ship whenever they start to move down in the power rankings and then move right back up. Number 6, LA Kings. The Kings are a suffocating team. Kemper's back. Playing pretty well in net this year. They beat the Oilers yesterday. I didn't think the Kings would be as good as they are. You know, doing this without Doughty. Playing strong hockey. Playing probably the best defensive hockey in the league. Maybe second best. Them or the Devils. Number 5, the Oilers. I know what you're gonna say. Oh, the Kings just beat the Oilers. Why aren't they ahead of the Oilers? The Oilers are playing really well too. That's an overtime game. The Oilers, I think, won 8 out of their last 10. The question with the Oilers is, are they gonna do anything with the goaltending and scoring depth? I think the Oilers are a Stanley Cup favorite, and they're finally playing like it the last couple weeks. Don't picture falling out of the top row for the rest of the season. That's probably a jinx. So next week, the Oilers will probably be ninth after they lose like 3 straight games or something. Number 4, Tampa. Scary team right now. That point Kucherov Gensel line, every time they come over the boards, put on your big boy pants, send out your number 1 pairing and your shutdown line, and just hope that they don't score. Hagel's also playing really well. The power play's clicking. Vasilevsky's starting to look like he's fully recovered from his injury from last year. I think Tampa's going to be a team that can make noise in the playoffs, and it looks like they've made the right move to move on from Stamkos and take Gensel instead. As shrewd as that is, or business-like as that is, sometimes teams make those decisions and they work out. Number 3 this week, the New Jersey Devils. Split a home and home with the Hurricanes. Hurricanes are a good team. The Devils, before those 2 games with the Hurricanes, had 7 straight games where they allowed 20 shots or less, which was an NHL record. Markstrom has really been playing well the last month or so. They're getting great play out of Jack Hughes and Brett. The thing that's concerning with the Devils right now is the depth. Yesterday, Cotter scored his first goal in 20 games. Bottom 6 isn't really producing, so days where the Jack Hughes line or the Heishier line don't put up some goals, they find themselves in trouble, but they're playing some of the best hockey in the league right now. All right, I'm going to move myself. I'm moving over here for the top 1 and 2 teams. Number 2 this week, the Washington Capitals. Capitals get Ovi back yesterday, get a nice win over Toronto. Ovi gets an empty netter, and the Capitals just keep winning, one without Ovechkin. And now that he's back, I expect them to keep winning. When you watch the Capitals, they're a good team. They're one of the better teams in the league, consistent. Thompson and Lindgren's a good goalie duo. Defense is good. Spencer Carberry seems like he's a good coach for his first 2 years. And the Capitals, who could have expected them to be number 2 at this point in the season? Number 1 this week, Vegas. Easily playing the best hockey in the NHL right now. Vegas just plugs guys in. It doesn't matter who they lose. They all work out. Olofsson's looking good. Howden's having a great year. Kolasar's scoring goals. Every move they make works. They lose Marchessault, doesn't matter. Hill's playing well in net. Yeah, Vegas has the highest points percentage in the NHL right now. And I think that they're pretty clearly playing the best hockey. I'll disappear here for a second to give you guys the full view. Man. That's the rankings for this week. That's a pretty fair ranking, in my opinion, of course. If you guys have any thoughts of your own, you tell me what I got wrong. Tell me, Joe, you're a homer about the Devils. They shouldn't be number 3. Or, Joe, you're crazy. How are the Canadiens in the second row? Or how are the Rangers that low? They're going to fix it. Yell at me if you want to. Or say, Joe, this is the best power rankings I've ever seen. That's going to be it for me. Quick little power ranking stream. We'll try to do these, for your nice Sunday morning cup of coffee. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.